Good evening and welcome to 15 Minutes with Longevity. I'm Giselle Wertheim-Ames and tonight we'll be discussing men's health. What every man and woman who looks out for that man should know in order to stay fit and healthy. Joining me in the studio this evening is Professor Elna McIntosh, a clinical sexologist and sex educator, as well as Professor Shingai Mutambirwa, a healthcare practitioner specialising as a urologist. So I'm really overwhelmed by the professors tonight in the studio. Men's health. I understand that men live on average about 5 years less than a woman. And I've read many reasons why this might be, that they drive cars off cliffs and jump off cliffs. But I think perhaps you can explain why there are other reasons that they might live a little bit less than the average woman.
Well, Giselle, it's actually true what you said about the fact that men do take have a higher risk profile than women. We don't take our health seriously. We're more likely to do health destroying things such as smoking and not exercising. But there's also some genetic factors as well which are involved, but particularly we don't bother to go and see our health practitioners as much as females, and on average we see them 5 times less in our lives, and that translates into the 5 years less for our health, for our lives.
So the attitudinal thing seems to be quite a key issue. Are men afraid to go to the doctor? What is it, Professor McIntosh? Is there some psychological block here?
I think it is about ego, but never mind that they live longer. In your 20s, we outnumbered. You have a 1 in 3 chance of finding a husband because you've already killed yourself drinking, driving. In your 40s, 6 to 1, and if you look at the old age home, 10 to 1. So men on average, there's not a lot of them around. We really, really have to look after them. And they don't like to go to the doctor. And it is funny because there are so many, if you look at all the ball sports that are being played, that they actually, one would think they talk a lot more. And, you know, they play soccer.
And we don't talk about correct things. We start boasting and saying things which are unnecessary and unusual, and usually they're lies, to be honest.
What are the kind of diseases, the lifestyle diseases that a man would get that a woman wouldn't get, for instance? So they're very specific diseases to men.
Well, let's put it this way. Of the 15 leading causes of death, they both happen similarly in both men and women, but 14 of them happen more in men. And we can put them down to 2 major causes. One of them are cardiovascular problems. This would be diabetes, hypertension, which leads to heart attacks and strokes and loss of limbs, and then cancers. And unfortunately, the cancer risks are increasing, particularly for prostate cancer and some other specific cancers we get as well. But in females, the only condition which happens more which kills females more than men is actually Alzheimer's, which is a particular neurological condition. But otherwise, all the other 15 leading causes, it's men.
Cancer is a very interesting one for me because, again, being a woman and being in media, I'm very sensitive to how much media exposure there is around cancer and how obvious cancer is. But men, it seems to be much more silent. Even the diseases themselves, the kind of cancers. Are there very specific cancers that men are getting more increasingly, we're seeing more and more of, and what would those be?
Well, we've got Movember now at least. So the whole of November is about growing your moustache in Movember. So I think that's great. It's a whole big new initiative that was started in Australia. And so in South Africa, we are making the awareness of testicular cancer and prostate cancer. And of course, we need a lot more attention. I think June is Men's Month.
June is Men's Health Month, and we've actually got a prostate cancer foundation.co.za, which is actually targeting a similar thing to Movember as well, about prostate cancer.
Let's talk about prostate, because it's an uncomfortable topic for men to talk about. Why is that?
Well, I guess it's mainly because of the taboo about how to examine it. We know the prostate is a little gland which sits around the pipe for passing urine just below the bladder, and it produces most of what a man ejaculates. And after about 40, it has an increased risk of cancer, and it's the commonest cancer men get after skin cancer. And it's the main examination is a blood test, and we have to put our finger in the rectum to actually feel the prostate. And so a lot of men feel uncomfortable with that. But it's really a very quick and easy test to do. And if you get it done once a year, your chances of cure are about 95%. But if you don't, then the main treatment for prostate cancer which is spread is to remove the testicles, actually, because the testosterone, the man chemical, is necessary for prostate cancer growth.
And it takes you about 30 seconds. I mean, how long does it take you?
Much less than that.
30 seconds. It's such a quick, fast, simple test. If you look at the equivalent of that would be a woman going for a pap smear. You know, there's so much work involved going for a pap smear. You've got to wear your new panty and you've got to do a lot of things. But with men, quickly, fast, one finger. But yes, it's something that they don't talk about or would want to hear about, and let's rather avoid it.
Is there a relationship between taking, for erectile dysfunction, for example, drugs, and do those mask the symptoms around some of these cancers? Or how do we know, for example, that we have a problem unless we go to the doctor and we have that test? Do we feel it somehow?
The short answer is that you do need to be checked for almost every cancer, because the symptoms of different cancers are varied, but particularly for prostate cancer, most of the cancers develop on the outside part of the prostate, so they don't get difficulty passing urine and things like that early, and it's only late in the disease, so you have to get the examination done and the blood test. Similarly with breast cancer, only when it's late are you going to find problems with blood coming out. So it's a matter of just getting yourself checked out, because it is a pretty simple thing that needs to be checked, and you're also going to make sure that you protect your heart.
Are there any other preventative steps you can take, for example, to avoid getting prostate? And I ask you that because I know you wrote a very interesting article in the Medical Chronicle around masturbation, and perhaps we can talk about, it's a very sensitive subject, I know, but I think it was a very interesting insight on the relationship that has to this illness.
So yeah, at the time when I wrote it, because just masturbation in the word already is such a taboo. And I remember sending it to Shingai and saying, please check it for me before it goes out. Because masturbation by itself has got so many myths. You'll go blind, you'll grow hairs on your palms, or all of these bad things. So masturbation is probably a very good thing for men to do, which men do anyway. So it's just about actually also giving them permission. But if it was like your car, you'd sort of... there's a great oil ad that says, you've got to move and change your oil. And so often you've got to talk to men like that, almost in you change the oil in your car and you move things around and you check things. And you've got to use such metaphors with men. Really, it's never true. Straightforward, to the point. So to get them in your office, so to actually give them permission, which they've been doing forever and a day anyway, and to say, it's good for you, really, you're allowed to masturbate. But
it's orgasm as well. Any type of orgasm is helpful. The studies said it was orgasm, including masturbation as well. But I think if you're going to look at cancers across the board, all patients like the idea of some magic pill that can protect you from cancers. The only thing that has been shown consistently to decrease all cancer risks is a good diet and regular exercise. Decreases your cancer risks across the board by 30%. Don't be looking for magic pills. Live a healthy lifestyle and protect yourself from heart diseases, and you also protect yourself from cancer.
Now, men perhaps, because there is an imbalance, we all know it's a fact of the workplace, towards there are more men in very demanding positions than there are women. Women have not broken that ceiling for whatever reason. There is still that huge imbalance, especially in very senior positions. So how do men get that support for their health in this very, I would say, very stressful type of environment where there's a lot of expectation on them?
I think nowadays you see wellness days, corporate wellness days actually, so health is coming into the workplace. And we need to target the wives as well, or the partners, because I think it's as important because both almost need to take responsibility, but wives also need to talk to husbands to say, I really want you around. I really don't want, because already we know you're going to live you're going to have an expected shorter lifespan than me. So to make sure and to look at his diet and it's all down to communication.
The emotional, the psychological support.
That's right. And in fact, stress has been shown to we used to think it was just about the problems in the brain and chemicals, but we now know it's an inflammatory disease. It actually causes damage to your blood vessels, and it's a cardiovascular risk as well. So the whole point is, if you're stressed and depressed and you're not getting involved with taking care of it, you're also going to be killing yourself as well, because you're going to cause yourself a heart attack or a stroke as well.
So if I have to ask you, just quick heads up, good advice, your top 3 tips you would give to a man, starting with you, Professor Shingai.
Good relationships, interactions with everybody, not just your partner. No getting stressed, exercise, and diet. That's what I would say.
I want to give 4 T's, and they stand for time, trust, talk, and touch. So take some time. Trust your doctor. Talk about this, and touch yourself.
Thank you both for coming and joining me in the studio. It's certainly been very interesting and enjoyable, and I learned a lot about men's health. I caught up with Oresti Patricius. He is the CEO of Ornico Productions, and he faced quite a serious health challenge when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. Oresti, thank you very much for joining us here on 15 Minutes with Longevity. Your story is an interesting story because you were diagnosed with testicular cancer, and I understand that you really had no idea, first of all, what that was, or you had no notion of it in your life until you discovered you had it. How did that come about?
Well, actually it was by accident. In fact, I had just gone for a checkup. I was super fit. I was looking to do the Argus in under 3 hours. And as you get older, you know, it's a little more difficult to do that. So I thought I was as healthy as anything. I was super fit. I was eating fantastically. And I just went for a checkup. And at that checkup, the doctor says to me, the urologist says, hey, you got a lump. We weren't sure if it was testicular cancer at that stage, but he says, you got a lump. I thought he was literally, I was really...
So you hadn't felt anything? He felt the lump and you hadn't felt the lump?
Yeah, he did an ultrasound. I could see it, and I still didn't believe it. I mean, I'm super fit. 2 days later, I had the operation, and I was diagnosed with testicular cancer.
And what was the prognosis for you?
Well, I was very lucky that I caught it at stage 1. And so what happened is they cut it out, and a week later, or 2 weeks later, I think it was, I was doing chemo. But I think I had a choice at that point in time whether to do chemo or not chemo, because I was very lucky that I did catch it at stage 1. And when I asked the oncologist, he said 50-50, you decide, except if you don't do chemo, you would have to come for checkups more often. And I thought, maybe I'll miss a couple, so let me go and run with chemo. And that's what I did.
And did you change anything else in your life, your diet, or, I mean, you obviously were pretty healthy, so what was any other health advice given to you at that time?
Yeah, well, look, while I was going through chemo, my wife was absolutely fantastic. I mean, she was strong for me. If at any point in time I felt that I was kind of dipping a bit, she just pulled me up by my shoestrings and just said, come, let's go. But also, at that point in time, I did change my diet. I mean, I did a lot of boiled meat, a lot of fresh vegetables, but like I said, I was eating healthy anyway, so it wasn't a huge change. It was just a bit of a change. So
what's your advice? I mean, what would you advise men to do about their health, given your experience? I mean, you're healthy today, that's fantastic.
I think I tell all my friends that they need to go for a checkup, and continue at least yearly. Obviously, because I didn't feel it, I didn't know it was there, I felt healthy. And I must tell you, a lot of my friends at the time really hit a bit of a panic. And a lot of them went to do their checkups. Whether they do it now continuously, I don't know, but I do. I'm very regular in terms of going. Every year I'll go for my checkups to just see that everything's fine.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. I hope you'll join me next week, where we'll be discussing the latest legislation with regards to smoking in South Africa with Dr. Yusuf Saluji. He's the Executive Director of the National Council Against Smoking. Have a great week, take care, and stay healthy.